Word of Mouth is an adult storytime presented by the Juliet Hampton Morgan Memorial Library on the second Sunday of the month. If you enjoy this kind of program, please consider subscribing to our YouTube page or following us on Facebook. As a reminder, as this is an adult storytime, some stories contain adult language and content, so it is recommended that you review these stories before allowing your younger audience members to listen. Thank you. With this being National Poetry Month, I thought it would be appropriate to read some of Anne Carroll George's work. She is a former state poet for Alabama, and she has, while more famously been known for her mystery novels, she is also a great poet. And without further ado, let's begin. Letty's Song for My Grandmother. Light lingers green to gold to first cold, starlight star bright, and Letty steps from pocked bones of the poplars, hands cupped round her rounded belly to cradle where her child quickens. Her pale hair is caught with ribbons that flare and fade in late breeze, while she hums a song to the unborn, of smoke-dry sun, starfish, towers, light that burrows through stone. Sing, Letty, sing to your child, the blue moth that takes your breath. Sing how living surprises us all, and as you hold your palm to the innocent moon, your life, your death. Late Fruit for Imelda. At rehab in over 60 aqua aerobics, we do the rainbow stretch and crab walk and lean on the bar for the flutter kick. Sunshine falls through the skylight to dissolve in warm water, sweet old scars. My sisters, we are stories rich for telling. The giant teddy bear man who came late to your life and believed you beautiful. The grandchild you thought you would never have. Your heart held gently in a stranger's palm. Look at the girl eating an apple and watching us through the gym window. She sees our gray hairs and bent bodies and probably thinks that, given a choice, we'd turn around time and live our lives backwards. Someday she will learn what we already know. We women, we survivors, late autumn fruit is surprisingly sweet. Poetry shards. I have a closet full of them, saving them for some gigantic mosaic, where all the pieces will fit just so. And one day I'll do it, glue them together, probably bleed on the shards once, break a few of the fragile ones, and God knows what it'll end up with. But it will be something. Something I will breathe on and polish until it sparks and comes alive. Then I will know its name. I think we can all guess what the name ended up being. Dancing at the Edge of the World. Let's dance, old man, old love. Let's dance a slow dance, a round dance, here at the edge of the world. The tide is singing tonight, as it will when no one remembers us, and I've forgotten or forgiven where I stop and you start. So let's dance, holding each other, moon, sun, while we drip and circle to earth's divining hum, and dark, dark water fixes the stars. I would like to note that some of these poems that you've just heard are from newer selections she's never released, and some are from older published work she's done before. From now on, we'll be going from one selection, which was Edge of the World, the title poem, to Some of It's True, a longer, more established work of hers, which she used a lot of different poems in. And the first one I'll read for you is Night Run. This clear night, our boat slices the warm gulf. Our wake is a white path, and all the fish that flared golden in the sun drift in darkness while we set our course. I know our history is written in light years, the murmuring tongue of the gulf. I know, below us continents shift, but this clear night, you and I together, and the stars, how lightly they tether us. Followed up by Sagittarius. Close to the horizon, you say, pointing southward over the gulf, and I say, yes, trying to find that faint constellation. A cold wind is blowing from the east. We have left the loud party and crossed the sand into darkness. Brittle stars rattle like dice, like the ice in my cup now. Above us the centaur aims his bow. The fire sign, you say. You are a traveler and a philosopher. And I laugh and take your hand, calloused and warm, while we walk together into the night, into whatever it is between the stars, into the arrow's path. New Orleans. When we lived in New Orleans, you couldn't sleep. I would rub your back while the rain, the impossible rain of New Orleans, weighed the oleander outside our window, so it brushed tick-tick against the pane. Sometimes we made love matter-of-factly because we were married and sharing a mattress. Afterwards, lying apart, we would hear tugs sounding on the river and the clank of the streetcars down St. Charles. To this day, I think of New Orleans, how we left when the heaviness made your bones ache. The hill is here as you imagined, a scent of pine resin in the sun. I remember shrimp boiling, diesel fumes, old flowers. There was something about New Orleans I almost believed. For my friend who would prove divinity with numbers. Patient man, you explained so carefully the significance of numbers in the Bible, how when the fishermen went from Galilee and caught 153 fish, it meant something, not just a good day's catch, that any fisherman might envy. You swear 666 and 888 abound so plentifully they should convince unbelievers, like a 2x4 straight to the head. And I believe you believe. But I want mystery, not proof. I want the Grail glimpsed only by Parisville, and lying under star-ridden skies at night, watching it turn gently around me. I want no answers, but questions, eternal human questions, that bear down on me until I stretch my hand to whatever infinity is and say, my God. Before we move on, another note about the autobiographical nature of this work in particular. You may have noticed a lot of these stories tell personal things that have happened to this author in ways that one would not normally associate with something you'd write down. That's something you can say that is beautiful about the difference between poetry and prose. Poetry allows one to express in a metered and structured format feelings that don't quite match what one can put to words otherwise. Some of you may have also noticed that I am flipping around quite a lot in this. That's because I don't want to give the whole plot away, as it were. Somebody who lives such an interesting life as her deserves to have their story read by a person in one sitting, in order. And I would like to encourage all of you who are remotely interested in these poems to do so, as the only way to really give it justice. With that being said, however, I will be now reading quite a few of them in order. in order to perhaps whet the appetite. Fog shades mountain. Past the dogwood, the world ends, gray, swirling, while in our kitchen the radio plays softly, and you stand at the stove turning eggs. Somehow it all comes together, the music, the mist, and I'm remembering another morning and the mountainous roads to Mariposa with you, turning towards me, touching my hand. How could I know then, decades ago, that I would not love you forever, but an unpredictable starts that would startle. Leave me beguiled as now, watching you cook eggs in our kitchen. For Earl, who got a haircut from a barber named Butch with tattoos. Alice had a miscarriage, her third, and wouldn't be in the shop for a while, and her sister said she almost bled to death, so he should try Ricky's on the corner. Earl's hair was over his ears, and Mrs. Ricky, very pretty with black hair, was sitting at the window at the manicurist's table, shiny bottles all around her. So we went in, and she said hi, only it was Mrs. Butch, not Mrs. Ricky. But he didn't know that until Butch came from the back and said, "This chair." Earl looked at his T-shirt that said, "Hail Maui full of grass," and the tattoos that rode his muscles like surfers. One was a woman in chains. And he said, "Are you Ricky?" And the man said, "I'm Butch." And he rattled the scissors in the jar antiseptic. So Earl got in the chair and said, "Don't cut much." Turned funny. Southern women turn funny sometimes. When what the creek don't drown, the locusts eat up, or the sun comes up, wrong side of the house. Good women turned funny, like my Aunt Alma, who, leaving a pot of beans to burn, did a mean can-can out in the yard, flipping her skirt over white cotton drawers that nearly blinded a couple truckers. And Southern families hold up their heads straight as a church choir on Sunday. "When Mama turned funny," they say proudly. "She dived from the banister, smashed the zinnias," or "Judy sent postcards to Jesus." And now my family, God bless them, chime in. "Our Anne," they boast, "she writes poetry." At the center of the universe. Today I till my garden in the triangular patch between the pear tree and the fence. Here I will plant tomatoes and rows of sunflowers that will turn their stems towards the light. Look at me, hand and knees black from kneeling, breaking up clods of sweet-smelling dirt that crumble silently, innocently as stars. In 3 months, hummingbirds will flame against blue and dive to yellow rayed flowers. Look at me lying under the tree naming God. See me eating a warm tomato in my mouth, opening and closing, opening and closing. After the bombing at Herod's, it was like a movie, the Italian kind, heavy with symbols like the gourmet food pears, ripe, yellow, we just bought, that we carried up the stairs to the nearest exit when the two lady bobbies screamed, "This way, this way." Nothing was real. I knew this and tried to explain, holding your head while you're sick, that the strewn bodies were mannequins, the cries, sound effects. Pure Fellini. Just look around. Pigeons fanning sepia dust, red shoes flung on glass, heavy symbols. And so you felt better, and we walked to Hyde Park and ate the pears that smelled of earth, that tasted and had deep fingernail marks all around us. Talisman Grandolia, so the sign said, tinted orangey pink towards the weak sun, which may or may not have been real. flying lessons. Let's say, for instance, and because it is true, that woman who stepped from the 10th floor window was holding her skirt modestly with both hands when she pressed me looking out of the 8th. Let's say I also say I was 10, that we smiled at each other and she mouthed goodbye, while behind me my mother painted her nails and my father studied the hotel menu. Maybe I still trusted death, who knows? Or maybe the look of wonder on the woman's face. But I said nothing, and the air still eerily held her shape, clear as the pigeons whirling from the ledge, and I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart hammering against its cage, while my mother came to stand by me, blowing on her nails, wondering what all the commotion in the street was about. When Mary Evelyn came to visit, it will be October, and I will take her place on the lake to see the patch of surprise lilies that bloom every fall. The path is steep and dry, not slippery like in the spring, but covered in leaves and pine straw that hide exposed rocks. Watch your step, I will say, as our shoes scuff up small mounds of red and gold. Let the sun be shining and pebbles glistening as we take off our shoes and wade, feeling the warm foam around our feet and talking of our mothers both dead so recently. And we'll sit on the pier, reminiscing, catching our breaths, as a sudden loud rattle, a kingfisher, blue arrow piercing the lake. At supper I will cut bread and steam will rise from the newly baked loaf, and we will eat it with Mary Evelyn's peach preserves in front of the fall's first fire. And as always with women, our mothers and grandmothers will sit beside us, shaping our bread, our fire. My mother candling eggs. She placed them carefully on top of the small wooden box. Each glows amber, a giant topaz. Like a jeweler, my mother squints and cups her hands around each globe that is pocked as the moon, streaked with lighting. She turns them, looks for flaws, for the egg the hen hid too long, the nest egg, and the farm woman watch 6, 8 cents as my mother hand me the perfect ones to put in the cotton-lined box. Now, decades later, I cup my hands around this memory. I am 8 years old, and I do not know the pain of these women who watch so carefully, and of my mother, who looks into their eyes, who will lie awake, asking the dark for answers. When I remember is the day growing old against the store window, shadow shapes on the wall, and the cats moving closer to the stove to watch with egg-shaped eyes. The old woman as rose, mountain, wind. 1. It is Christmas and a rose still buds on my fence. Something doesn't know the season, I think. Wouldn't give to the cold. Arms full of Christmas greenery, I touch the flower in its pale yellow jacket and whisper its name, a prayer. 2. These are old mountains, rounded. I lived a life here. Packed water from the creek, broken garden hose on rocks. I watched from my kitchen window. The seasons take us. When I was 6, Papa gave me a present, pointed to the ridge, and said, "Choose one." And that mountain, beautiful and wild, became a part of me. And I told Papa, "I have swallowed the mountain." He said, "What have I done?" 3. Oh, what a mighty dancer, let as air, and every man hearing my music, every man trying to catch me until the wind at night whispered one name, wild and beautiful, and we created children who danced like spirits as if the earth had no corners. So I gave them a mountain. 4. Tonight, the wind sings at the top of the firs, and I am an old woman who forgives her body many pains, who decorates her mantle with holly and ivy, and listens to the wind's song, which may be a prayer for all that endures, flowers, mountains, winds, earth, and it's certainly praise for the giver. As we've actually been going back in time a little. The first section of poems was originally from a publication the author did in 2000. It was her last collection of poems. The second one was from 1993, the collection that was just before she became the state poet. This one is from 1985, and the collection's called Spraying Under the Bed for Wolves. And each one of these collections have many more in them, despite what short book this looks like to be. And many of the poems in those books aren't in this one either. When an author chooses to put poems from a collection together as one group, I've noticed there's often meaning behind it. So this is again me encouraging you to check out this book and other books like it by this author. So perhaps you can appreciate the picture a little more fully. Without further ado, The Year of Rain. The gypsies come to harvest the potatoes, smelling the rotten vines, and drive away in their flatbed truck, leaving Sister Ada, old, bent, coughing into her skirt, on the Calhoun Road, where the postman finds her. 2. When the water reaches the gauge's red line, Bill Watkins opens the pond sluice gate, flooding the field and drowning the Baptist minister who bobs down Kelly Creek like the cork he leaned his boat to get. 3. The morning the sun quits trying and the stars come out, the county commissioner calls an emergency meeting. Sister Ada, much improved by the antibiotics at Baldwin Memorial Hospital, reads palms. We're all buried in starlight, she tells the commissioner, and he sees Sister Ada once was very beautiful. She traces the lines on Bill Watkins' hands, circling the whorls and calyxes. Everything is done by halves, she says, and everyone remembers being old. Outside, stars fall and puddle in the streets. The commissioner asks the Methodist minister to pray. Daisy Watkins hopes today she will be able to take her wash off the line. Temptation. In my backyard, between the septic tank and the tool shed, is a large rabbit hole. No one has noticed it but me. I watch it a while. Wash dishes, change diapers, cook supper. It is growing. I watch it while I scrub the toilet, iron the shorts, and talk to a Jehovah's Witness who wants to sell me a copy of Awake, and it's moving closer. Today I went out for the first light and walked around its mouth. Above me the trees whispered, the sun stopped at the chain-link fence. I lowered one foot into the hole, but I stumbled back, cried. I'm not bold enough yet for the fall. Family reunion. Was it you, Father, who took me to Uncle H.V.'s? It must have been. I remember sitting by you in a car, and there was a scar on your cheek, tiny, deep, as if a freckle had fallen out. You sang Springtime in the Rockies, and I watched as the hole stretched and narrowed. I remember Uncle H.V.'s. Your mother is very old, wrapped in an afghan in August heat. Kiss her. I do. Grandma, watch this. Cousin Vincent gallops by, standing on his horse's back, Aunts and uncles all clapped, surely as it was you who took me to the creek, who said this is where we played when we were children. Watch out for snakes, but I am not sure. What I do remember is Vincent circling round and around the horse, Uncle Reese playing on a little metal harp, and in the late light, the feeling that all of us on Uncle HV's porch were disappearing. Aunt Nettie and the Well. For 70 years you have walked this path, clutched your mother's skirt, you stood on ridges and frozen mud, and watched her lower the bucket, bouncing it gently until it turned and cut the water. Later it was your skirt the young children held, while dreams clouded your mother's waking hours. The well, you tell me, was your mirror. Here, under the china berry, you set up your quilt frame and met a man, come for the cool, wishing water of summer, and you married him, driving into Iowa City in a '36 Chevy, counting one-eyed cars, making wishes that didn't bring him back. Not from the Pacific. Now you throw china berries down the well, and a thin, white-haired woman, and talk of the windmill once bigger than the moon, of winters when cows froze, leaning into fences, their eyes wide, surprised, and summers of dry lightning that arced like memory from your fingertips out of your outstretched hand. I look at the horizon narrow as a knife, and imagine mountains wedged into the sky, forests that shape themselves to swallow the wind. You prop folded arms onto the well's curb, like a shield, grown too heavy to lift. There is no place to hide, you say. Mr. Philip, who conjured warts. Let's see your hand, he said, and I held it out, ashamed of the black-seeded burrs that covered my fingers. He nodded his head. The sun glinted off the yellow John Deere letters in oily green sweat ring above the bib of his cap. A good crop, he said. The other old men who gathered each day at the bench at Magoo's store agreed. He held my hand like a small white stone, circling each wart with his gnarled, calloused finger. The skin across the back of his hand was thin, discolored as old tissue paper. In 2 weeks the warts will be gone. I felt nothing but a rough, damp palm and the warmth of the sun reflected in Magoo's dirty windows. She don't believe you, Philip. Mr. Portfield poked my leg with his cane. Mr. Philip folded my hand gently and gave it back to me. It don't matter, he said. Picking tomatoes on Sand Mountain. The pickup bounces on the corrugated road, through the patchwork red, gold, strips of lavender. We touch our mouths carefully to styrofoam cups of coffee. Sing On the Road Again, then the sign, Pick Your Own, a million tomatoes reflecting in the sun. We are early, the only ones. We take our baskets, move down the rows, ripe tomatoes drop with the slightest twist. Spaghetti sauce, I think. Ketchup. At the lip of the bluff we rest, watch clouds bank the west. You bite a tomato, juice runs down your chin. I lie back against the warm rocks and watch the hawks wheeling. Listen, for whatever, I forgive you. What if? Sometimes my mother would show me the picture of her with typhoid fever, 3 years old, held towards the camera in her mother's arms. They thought she would die. She looked like she would, her face a Halloween mask. But where would I be, I'd want to know? Someone else's little girl? Even then I knew better than that. And what if they had the price of a movie the night I was conceived? They have been at Paramount eating popcorn instead of in the bed of Finney Avenue, or almost the last time they reached out for each other, maybe just because the night was warm, or maybe the neighbors were fighting. I think about these things. I don't know why. To Virginia, who walked on her hands. At the miracle revival, your mother found Jesus, standing by the tent. We watched her shake and moan under the light cross that fried night insects. Afterwards, going home, you showed me you could walk on your hands, moving easily through cages of light drawn by shuttered windows. One day, you said, you would leave this town. The crazy mother, the uncles whose sex was the size of dill pickles. You laughed at my astonishment, flipping your feet crossed your heart over newly rounded breasts. And I believed you. I skipped school when you married the old man from Dallas, and I cried, but not for you. Going up the plain steps, you turned to wave, the skirt of your white dress fanning out like a moth. It was the last time I saw you. I know your husband died, leaving you money you spent it at Monte Carlo, and that you have a man that you love and beautiful children. I think of you often, Virginia. If this isn't the way it turned out, don't let me know. Twice risen bread. Kneading the bread once risen is the chipped crockery bowl that belonged to my grandmother. I pushed my finger into the tiny prisms of air that pop and whisper like small fries. Twice risen is best, my long dead Dosha says. Her hands black puffy, knuckles white knobs of flour. She pushes the dough, soft blows cut quarter moons. Her upper arms with their beige stretch marks sway above the board. White folks don't know it all. She looks to see if my grandmother had heard. Now I set the dough to rise again. Across the decades, Dosha hands me a child's loaf coated with cinnamon and sugar. Jesus, she sings, and I join in. Jesus, keeper of my soul. The ice storm. The cherry laurel splits. I hear a loud sigh and look through the window as trees slowly divides. Some branches hang together by habit, but ice tears them apart at the trunk, spills them open, jagged, pale, and yellow. 3 days stranded, no lights, no phone. Last night we drank the last of the vodka. Today we'll run out of logs. On the sofa you huddled under a double-quilted ring quilt. Are you asleep? It doesn't matter. I open the garage and walk to the tree. Each step breaks the skin of ice. I hear a noise at the window. See you slowly wrapped in the quilt. Sleet and your image run down the pane, freeze, mottled as a blind eye. The bridge foursome. Shrimp salad for lunch, wine in Watford that rainbows the cloth. They talk of marriages, grandchildren, the best place to buy shoes. South. The sky is a blackbird's wing, enveloping me, soaring through the black, falling upward. Fall is early, they think. The dogwood already scarlet. In August, brush